All right. This is the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Started 1 West 125th Street under Commanding General YAHANNA. You know what I'm saying? We're not affiliated with any other Hebrew Israelite group. All right. So, you know what I'm saying, we're going to go ahead and get into these scriptures. You know what I'm saying? This is the Brotherhood class. You know what I'm saying? You know, and since we're talking about brotherhood, you know what I'm saying, Christ, you know what I'm saying, was the ultimate brother. You know what I'm saying? Christ was a brother, a prophet who went well beyond any prophet in this book. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I'm saying, we know Christ, you know what I'm saying, Christ was a great man. You know what I'm saying? Christ, you know what I'm saying, he died for his people. You know what I'm saying? And he only came to save his people. You know what I'm saying? He didn't come to save everybody and, you know what I'm saying, all other nations. Christ really loved his people, you know what I'm saying, so much so that he was, you know what I'm saying, he was a lamb for him. He was a sacrifice for his people. You know, Christ was that ultimate brother. You know, nobody could do it, you know. You know, Christ was like, you know, for to make a comparison, Christ was like, you know what I'm saying, the Jimi Hendrix, a guitar player. You know what I'm saying? Christ was like the Sebastian Bach, you know, of composers. He was just the best, you know what I'm saying, the best to do it because he's Christ. You know what I'm saying? He's the Lord's son. So, you know what I'm saying, let's go ahead and get into the scripture. This is Matthew 1:21. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. So Christ, his very name, you know, his name, Yahawashi, you know what I'm saying, in the Hebrew, it means for he shall save his people from their sins. You know what I'm saying? That's what Christ's name means. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's not like you know what I'm saying, it's not like Tommy or Chad or you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying. His name actually has a meaning to it. You know what I'm saying? You know, and the meaning to it was that he was going to save his people. You know what I'm saying? Not all people across the entire planet. You know, that wouldn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying? Especially when we're a people, you know what I'm saying, who don't, you know, well, I ain't gonna say who don't have a land, but who aren't in their land. You know what I'm saying? We're the only people like that. You know what I'm saying? You know, we're the only people who really need saving. You know, if you were to really think about it, the only people who need saving from not only themselves, but from other nations are the Jews. You know what I'm saying? Are blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. You know what I'm saying? Are the Israelites. We're really the only people who are that oppressed, you know, to the point where, you know, we're not in our land being oppressed by another nation. We're in another nation's land being oppressed by that nation. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, you know, it's part of the curses because we turned you know, we turned from, you know, the Most High. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's part of the curses, you know, but, you know, we still, you know what I'm saying, the white man doesn't get you know, how can I call it, a free pass. You know what I'm saying? You know, the white man didn't have to go as far as he did, you know, in you know what I'm saying, you know, to raping boys and using us, as gator bait. You know what I'm saying? The white man didn't have to go that far. You know what I'm saying? That's why, you know what I'm saying, he's gonna get his own punishment. You know what I'm saying there's a punishment for all nations, really. You know, for what they did to us as a people, there's a punishment for it. So, you know what I'm saying? It's just, you know, that's how it is. So it says he will save his people from their sins. You know what I'm saying? Christ was the last sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, we don't have to go out and slaughter a calf or a lamb or a goat or anything. You know, we don't have to, you know, do that anymore. You know, Christ was the last sacrifice. We really weren't supposed to do that in the first place because the Most High didn't want us to keep sinning in the first place. You know what I'm saying? Sin brings about more death, you know, more, you know what I'm saying, just really, it weakens your nation. You know, the more a nation sins, or the more our nation sins, you know, because you have to be a Israelite to transgress the law anyway, because the laws were given to us. So, you know, the more we sin, the more, you know, the weaker and weaker our nation becomes. You know, so in saying that, you know what I'm saying, we needed to be saved. You know, we needed in a sense a grace period, a time period. You know what I'm saying? Like Christ was, you know, not only was he the ultimate brother, but he was the ultimate sacrifice, man. Like he was the last sacrifice. You know, nobody out, you know, is, you know, that's it. You know what I'm saying? This is our last chance in a sense. This is our last chance to get right. You know, after this, you know, you either you either sided with Christ, or, you know what I'm saying, you ended up getting destroyed, you know, by, you know, getting destroyed because you never turned away from your wickedness. You never changed your ways. You never repented. You know what I'm saying? Or you denied, you know what I'm saying, you denied the prophets. You spoke against the Lord's prophets. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, there's a punishment for that. You know what I'm saying? There's you know what I'm saying? You basically thrown away what Christ did. You're throwing it back in his face in the sense that, you know what I'm saying, like you're not doing what you were supposed to do. And that is, you know what I'm saying, go back to laws, go back to what, you know what I'm saying, the Most High, you know, wanted you to do in the first place. You know what I'm saying? That's what he wanted you to do in the first place. So, you know what I'm saying? All right. Postponing class for a second. All right, so sorry about that. But yeah, let's go ahead and go to the next verse. All right, Matthew 15 and 24. All right, Matthew 15 and 24. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So, you know what I'm saying? He was talking to you know what I'm saying, a heathen. You know what I'm saying? He said he's not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. You know, even though, you know, for instance, you know, I know like people will say, oh, but they taught the Gentiles and all this, and you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes the Gentiles were our people, but they were just going under, you know what I'm saying? Like the same way the same way we're Americans. You know what I'm saying? Some of us think we're Americans, but we're really Israelites by blood. You know what I'm saying? According, you know, by prophecy, by blood, heritage, and prophecy. You know, so you know, Gentiles isn't always somebody of another nation. You know, so when he said, I'm not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel, you know what I'm saying? You got to realize that we are that lost sheep. You know what I'm saying? We're a very lost people. You know, that's like how the analogy, the example I said before. You know, most of us think we're African American or you know, Americans or black or Negro, but that's not so. That's not who we are. You know, we're actually, you know, the lost tribes of Israel. You know, we're scattered abroad. We're scattered everywhere. You know what I'm saying? So Christ said, you know, he was sent unto those lost sheep. You know, he was sent for those people who were lost, who were scattered. You know what I'm saying? Who needed to be guided back. You know what I'm saying? Who needed to know, you know what I'm saying, who they were again. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, because we needed a shepherd, and Christ was that shepherd that came. You know, otherwise, you know, we'd still be, you know what I'm saying, well, you know, we still are, but we wouldn't have a grace period. You know what I'm saying? Most High in Christ for Christ, you know. So, you know, even though, you know what I'm saying, it's the same thing at camp. You know, we may be at camp and speaking, and all manners of people come up and from all nations, you know, like it could be our people, you know, other Israelites who don't know they're Israelites, and it could be, you know, heathens, people of another nation. So they, you know, they don't really, you know, even though they're round about us, you know what I'm saying, we're primarily speaking to our people. You know, the heathens you know, the people, white man might come up, you know what I'm saying? The only thing he's really good for, you know what I'm saying, to us is to go ahead and pay tribute, you know, make a donation or kiss boots. That's it. You know what I'm saying? That's the only thing he can do. That's the only thing he's good for right now. You know, as of right now, that's all he's good for. You know, but when we be at camp, even though there be other nations speaking, I mean, not other nations speaking, but other nations, you know, moving around us, we're focused on teaching our people instead of, you know, we don't necessarily care to teach other nations because we're not trying to get them into our congregation. You know, we're never to mix with other nations and mingle and, you know, intermarry and things like that. So it's almost worthless or fruitless speaking to, you know, or teaching somebody of another nation who's not, you know, part of the 12 tribes, who's not an Israelite. Is damn near worthless. You know, so we're, you know, like Christ said, you know what I'm saying, I'm not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel, which means it's the same thing I just said just now. He primarily wanted to teach the Israelites and nobody else. You know what I'm saying? Nobody, because nobody else really matters. All right. So let's go ahead and go to John 4:22. All right. All right. So this is John 4:22. Ye worship, ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. So, you know what I'm saying? He was speaking to a lady at the well, you know what I'm saying? She didn't necessarily, she was speaking about how she, you know what I'm saying, she thought she was worshiping the right God, but she didn't, Christ knew, you know what I'm saying? Christ is the only one who really spoke to the Most High. He's the only one who's seen the Most. I ain't gonna say spoke to the Most High, but he's the only one who's seen the Most High. You know what I'm saying? The Most High speaks to him. The Most High was dealing with Christ. You know what I'm saying? When Christ was on the planet. So, you know what I'm saying? This woman didn't know. Well, you know what I'm saying? Well, Christ knew that she didn't know what she was worshiping. You know what I'm saying? She was, just like how these Christian pastors, you know what I'm saying, they're not doing the proper way of worshiping the Lord. They don't know what they're doing. They just, you know what I'm saying, they think they have understanding, but they don't. You know what I'm saying? They are those dumb dogs, you know what I'm saying, who don't bark. You know what I'm saying? They don't exactly know. You know what I'm saying? Well, most of them know that they're using you know what I'm saying, Christianity to further you know what I'm saying, to have further gain in this world, and you know what I'm saying, that they're really just greedy. You know what I'm saying? They don't care, how their own people are actually doing. They just out for their own thing. Like the scripture say, they're out for their own gain. So they don't really care about what the Bible actually says. Like most people, you know what I'm saying, they're just out for their own thing. You know what I'm saying? They don't really care what they're worshiping. You know what I'm saying? But right, so we know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. So like the brothers in this school, we know what we worship. You know what I'm saying? We know the real name of Christ. I'm saying we know the Lord's name. So we actually know what we're doing. We have understanding of this Bible. You know what I'm saying? More than anybody. In the home, that's why we say we're the home of the truth. Because we've got an understanding of this Bible like no other camp, like no, you know what I'm saying, like no other, you know what I'm saying, name it. Your Christian group, your Christian pastor, minister, Louis Farrakhan, Cornell X, Joel Osteen, your rabbis, they don't have the understanding like these brothers in this truth. They just don't have it. They don't know what they're worshiping. And they don't know the real name of the Lord or the real name of Christ. They're just out for their own thing, they're out for their own gain, so they can just, you know what I'm saying, continue to suck the blood out the people, and you know what I'm saying, that's it. You know what I'm saying, give money. You know what I'm saying, who cares about the people? You know what I'm saying, that's their mindset. So all right, let's go ahead, get Acts 10 and 38. All right. All right, so Acts 10 and 38. How God anointed Jesus of Nazareth with the Holy Ghost and with power, who went about doing good and healing all that were oppressed of the devil, for God was with him. So the Lord dealt with Christ. You know what I'm saying? He, like how I said, he anointed him with power and of the Spirit of the Lord. You know what I'm saying? It all comes from, you know what I'm saying, it all comes from the Lord, man. I'm saying no matter what you do, I'm saying no matter any increase you got, it's all of the Lord, man. You know what I'm saying? From the money you get, from the the jobs you go to work for, or it's all from the Lord. It's all because I'm saying the Lord values us as the people. We just at the time we just being bad kids. We're not doing what he says. So, I'm saying it all comes from the Lord. I'm saying even in our slavery, I'm saying we still here, we still alive. I'm saying all we gotta do is come back to the Most High. All right, so I'm saying Christ went around, like how it says, who went about doing good and healing all that were oppressed of the devil, for God was with him. So he went about, I'm sure you've read plenty of stories, like how he healed the blind man, like Christ did a lot of miracles, how he walked on water, just, turning water into wine. He did all of these things. He had the power to do it. The power came from the Lord. Because he had a faith. He had faith in the Lord that was greater than all men. And that's why he's the Lord's son. The Lord anointed him with all that, with the, with the spirit and with the power to do those things. Right. So like how it said, who went about doing good and healing all that were oppressed of the devil. Who were oppressed by this white man, oppressed by the Romans, oppressed by other nations. So Christ went about doing those works, man, to wake his people up even further. To bring his people, back to the Most High, back to the laws, back to doing, what we should have been doing in the first place. Like how I said earlier, it was never meant for us to even go, to sin, to follow another nation. It was never meant for us to do that. You doing that, following another people, you're now in opposition of the Most High. If you're in opposition of the Most High, all that waits for you is death. That's why it says sin, brings about death. I'm paraphrasing, but sin brings about death. The more you sin, you're going, back in those days, they really would just put you to death. That's how it's going to be when the kingdom comes too. You start sinning, you start eating a pork chop sandwich, we're going to put you to death. All right, so let's keep going. For God was with them, and we are witnesses of all things which he did both in the land of the Jews and in Jerusalem, whom they slew and hanged on a tree. So the disciples and many people were actually witnesses to what Christ did. All the miracles and healings that Christ did. Many people saw it. And the prophets and disciples that were with him, they of course, they wrote it down. These records. So we know what went on back then. They are a witness to what happened. All that has to be, recorded. Something of that magnitude needs to be recorded and broke down. So the people, who come afterwards, they have the understanding and wisdom of what happened back then. What's that saying? If you don't know know what I'm saying? If you don't know your history, you know what I'm saying, the past is going to repeat itself. I'm saying the past will repeat itself. So you need to know your past mistakes. You know, that's how you learn a lesson in the first place. You learn from your past mistakes. You know what I'm saying? That's really the only way to learn. You know what I'm saying? Just like when you working on a skill or anything, it takes um, a certain amount of you know what I'm saying? It just takes a certain amount of practice to get better and better at the thing you're working on, whether it be a, you know what I'm saying, an instrument, or, you know what I'm saying, doctor or lawyer, or anything. Anything you put your hand to, it's just going to take practice. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same way with these records. You know, many times we fail, you know what I'm saying? We started doing the commandments. You know what I'm saying? We got out of captivity, started doing the commandments, and then, you know, years went by, and then we stopped doing it again. You know what I'm saying? And then we went back into slavery. And that just kept happening with our people. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know what I'm saying, every time that happened, it had to be recorded. You know, we intermarried, you know what I'm saying, or, you know what I'm saying, we turned to Baal. We started worshiping other gods. We need a record of what happened before so we can learn now in the present. All right. You know what I'm saying? So, and we are witness of all things which he did both in the land of the Jews and in Jerusalem, whom they slew and hanged on a tree. So they slew, and of course, y'all know they crucified Christ. You know, saying Christ had a very torturous death. You know, that wasn't no easy thing to die that way. You know, I'm saying that was a very slow, painful death. All right, you know that's not a easy way to go. You know what I'm saying, and if you really, you know, think about that scripture, whom they slew and hanged on a tree, it sounds like, you know what I'm saying, your modern day brothers and sisters. You know what I'm saying, they still hanging niggas on trees, man. You know what I'm saying, just because it's not being reported that frequently doesn't mean it's not happening. You know what I'm saying, and you know for a fact how much they were doing it back in the you know what I'm saying, the 16, 1700s. You know what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying, that was their thing. You know what I'm saying, 1800s. You know what I'm saying, all the way up until now. You know what I'm saying, that's what white people did, and they did it to Christ as well. You know what I'm saying? Everything Christ went through, we're going to have to go through too. You know what I'm saying? We're going, you know, some of us, like the scripture says, some of us may be thrown in prison and tortured for days. You know what I'm saying? Some of us may die before Christ come back. You know, so it's definitely, you know what I'm saying, you got to be real strong in this truth, man, because the things that Christ went through, you know what I'm saying, the things Christ did, you know what I'm saying, we're going to do them same things too. All right, so let's go ahead and get John 15 and 12. All right. John. All right, John 15 and 12. Okay. This is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you. So you're saying it's the, you know what I'm saying? That's the greatest commandment. You know what I'm saying? That's actually the second greatest commandment, that you love one another. You know what I'm saying? Love each other the same way Christ loved us. You know what I'm saying? You know, Christ had enough love, you know, for us as a people, that he was willing to sacrifice his life. And which he did. You know what I'm saying? He sacrificed his life for us, man. You know what I'm saying? That way, You know what I'm saying? We'd have a grace period. You know what I'm saying? Uh, we'd have a chance to get right with the Lord. And you know what I'm saying, having there's a due date now. You know what I'm saying? You don't know the date in which your time limit of you getting right, but you know that due date is coming, man. And it is best that you just get right now. You know, that way, you know what I'm saying, you the Lord shows you favor. You know what I'm saying, that you stay with the Lord. Because when you, like I said previously, when you oppose the Lord, you know what I'm saying, you're in sin. You know what I'm saying? Any man that opposes the Lord, he's bound to die. You know, whether it be physically and or spiritually, and probably both. You know, so that's why it's imperative that we as a people do that commandment. You know what I'm saying? That ye love one another as I have loved you. You know what I'm saying? Love each other as much as as much as Christ loved us. You know what I'm saying? Christ did a lot of work, man. You know what I'm saying? Christ really loved his people. All right, so let's keep going. Greater love have no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. So that's the greatest amount of love you can show any brother or sister, that you lay down your life for that brother or sister. You know, the same way Christ did. That's why he said, love one another as I have loved you. You know what I'm saying? There's going to come a time when we're all tested on the brotherhood, on exactly how brotherly and how brotherly we are. You know what I'm saying? No man, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. You know what I'm saying? Even in Esau's world, you know what I'm saying, that's one of the greatest. You get I think it's a medal of honor for doing that, for laying down your life for your squadron, for jumping on a grenade for them. You know, you get one of the highest honors, one of the highest medals. You know what I'm saying? Well, it's the same way. You know what I'm saying, with us. That's the greatest amount of love you can show a brother. All right. You know what I'm saying? So, ye are my friends if ye do whatsoever I command you. You know what I'm saying? We are the Christ's friends. You know what I'm saying? We're not just, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Christ is a brother, man. You know what I'm saying? He came in the flesh. He came as one of us. You know what I'm saying? He came as, you know what I'm saying, so he could experience what it is to be like one of us. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying, he didn't come down as some kind of spirit. You know what I'm saying? He was a flesh and bone man. You know what I'm saying? So he was a brother. You know what I'm saying? All right. So let's keep going. Let's get Matthew 25 and 40. All right. All right, Matthew 25 and 40. And the king shall answer and say unto them, verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, you have done it to me. So you got to be brotherly, you know what I'm saying? You got to, you know what I'm saying, and not have respect to a person. You know what I'm saying? Because anything you do to the least in the nation, you know what I'm saying, it's the same thing as if you've done it to, you know what I'm saying, as if you've done it to Christ. I'm saying you got to treat everybody with respect. You know what I'm saying? Don't just, you know, be talking, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't just, how can I say? You what I'm saying? You so busy trying to check a brother on what he did, you went from rebuking and checking and correcting to, I'm saying, now you're just talking shit to him. I'm saying now you just you vomit it out the mouth, man. You just saying whatever now so you can make your own ego feel better. You know what I'm saying? So you can you know what I'm saying, boost your own self-esteem. You know what I'm saying? You went from correcting the brother, now you just talking mess about it. You just now you messy like a woman. You know what I'm saying? Anything you do, you know what I'm saying, especially if you offend a young one, you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying, somebody that's just learning about the truth, and you scare them off. You know what I'm saying? You run them off because you don't know how to respect people under you. You know what I'm saying? It's the scriptures say you might as well have hanged yourself with a milestone underwater. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? You gotta, you know what I'm saying, it be in our best interest that we respect our brothers, man. You know what I'm saying? And not talk down on our own people. You know what I'm saying? Just because we got a little bit of power, you know what I'm saying? Anything, like how I said, the least you've done, you know what I'm saying, if you've done it to the least, you know what I'm saying, it's as if you were doing it to Christ. So every time you speak to a brother, you got to act like you're speaking to Christ. You know what I'm saying? You got to, you know what I'm saying? You got to have that much respect for every brother. You know what I'm saying? Because you know you're not just going to talk crazy to Christ. You already know that. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You're not going to talk crazy to Christ. But you know you will talk crazy to that trooper. You will talk crazy to that student or that officer 50. You know what I'm saying? Because you just don't care. You don't care about the brotherhood in that sense. You just want to feel better about yourself. You know what I'm saying? You know you wouldn't talk crazy to Christ, but you do it, you know what I'm saying, for somebody under you. And that's backwards, man. You know what I'm saying? That's weak. You know what I'm saying? So let's read that scripture again. And the king shall answer and say unto them, verily I say unto you, inasmuch ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, you have done it unto me. You know what I'm saying? And that's the same, that goes for another nation too. If another nation does something to our brothers and sisters, you know what I'm saying, you've done it to the least of our brethren, you know what I'm saying, it's like you've done it to Christ. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna have to, you know what I'm saying, another nation not gonna get away with just doing anything. You know what I'm saying? It don't matter if, you know what I'm saying, who it is. You know what I'm saying? If you part of this nation, you know what I'm saying, it's, you know what I'm saying, you know, especially, you know, in the kingdom, you know what I'm saying, there's gonna be retaliation, man. You know what I'm saying? You touch one of the least. You know what I'm saying? If you were gonna touch somebody, you might as well have just gone for the greatest. You know what I'm saying? But let's go ahead. Give me Amos, well, let's get Amos 3:3. All right. Amos 3:3. All right. All right, so Amos 3:3. Here, no. Can two walk together except they be agreed? You know what I'm saying? Actually, I'll read the verse above it. Amos 3:2. You only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities. You know what I'm saying? The Lord's only known us on, you know what I'm saying, in all the earth. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? The Lord's only given you know what I'm saying, us the laws, you know what I'm saying, to do. You know what I'm saying? No other nation can really do this. You know, it's not meant for them to do it anyway. So, you know what I'm saying, that's why the Lord calls them the beasts of the field. You know what I'm saying, because they're a lawless people. They don't have, you know what I'm saying, just like animals. Animals don't really have no laws and things like that. You know what I'm saying, they have a certain behavior, a certain nature to them, but they don't have, you know, rules and guidelines. It's the same way with, I'm saying, a Chinese man or Asian, you know what I'm saying, a Arab, you know what I'm saying, especially this white man. They're like animals because they don't really have no, you know what I'm saying, they don't have a father to give them laws. You know what I'm saying, but we do. And that's why the Lord said, you know what I'm saying, out of all families on the earth, he's known us. So we have the laws. It's for us to do. You know what I'm saying, it's for us to follow and do what's right. You know what I'm saying? Do what's right unto the Most High. You know what I'm saying, that's doing these laws. You know what I'm saying, that's what doing the right thing is. You know what I'm saying? That's what shows. You know what I'm saying, that's what pleases the Lord. That you're actually doing. You know what I'm saying, that you're actually being a good child to. You know what I'm saying, a good servant. You know what I'm saying, you doing what He says. You know, so how it says, therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities. You know what I'm saying, because we're the only ones that can transgress the laws. You know what I'm saying, we got a father. So when we go against the laws, we go against the Most High. So He's going to punish us for that. He's going to punish us for our iniquities. You know what I'm saying, for the things that we do. You know what I'm saying, for being hard-headed, for being stiff-necked. There's a price for that. I'm saying there's a, I'm saying, or how the scriptures say, I'm saying there's a reward. There's a reward for every action you do. You know what I'm saying? So no matter what it is, whether it be, you know, good or bad, you know, there's a reward for it. So if you've been righteous, you know what I'm saying, you've been a good servant, you know what I'm saying, a good son to the, you know, for the Most High, you got a reward coming for you. You know what I'm saying, if you've endured to the end, I'm saying you're getting a crown. You know what I'm saying, that's the greatest reward we can get is a, you know what I'm saying, a everlasting crown. You know what I'm saying, being part of the 144. You know what I'm saying, that's awesome. You know what I'm saying, we'll be set forever. You know what I'm saying, and ever. All right. So that's the, you know, and if you're unrighteous, then you know what reward you get. You get a very, you know what I'm saying, you end up being least in the kingdom. You know what I'm saying, you're probably great in this kingdom. You know what I'm saying, you're probably a Christian pastor, deceiving everybody. But in the next kingdom to come, you know what I'm saying, with Christ ruling, you're going to end up being least because you weren't, you know what I'm saying, you didn't care about what the Most High said. You didn't care about your people and their struggle. You just cared about yourself. All right. So Amos 3:3, can two walk together except they be agreed? So can two walk together except they be agreed? I'm saying the only way we can go down the same path is by, you know what I'm saying, agreeing to go down the same path. I mean, it's really that simple. No, you know what I'm saying, you can't say, you know, I can't be going right and then you trying to go left and saying we out of order. You know what I'm saying, we are not on one accord. You know what I'm saying, the only thing that's going to get our people, you know, saved and you know what I'm saying, out of this hell is to do what the Lord say. That's the only way. You know what I'm saying, that's the only way to get up out this hell is to do what the Most High said. You know what I'm saying, It's to do, I'm saying, what the prophets have always spoken about. That's how we get up out this hell. That's how we, you know what I'm saying, become a people again, a nation. You know, that's the only way I've seen, you know, because you can't unite people, you know what I'm saying, our people on just black, you know what I'm saying, because there's also dark-skinned Asians, there's dark-skinned Arabs, you know what I'm saying, it's, you know, it's not going to work on uniting everybody on just being one color. You got to unite your people under their nationality and nothing else. So right, can two walk together except they be agreed? You know what I'm saying? You have to agree with each other to walk the same path. You got to be headed in the same direction. All right. So let's get Psalms. Let's get Psalms 133 and 1. All right, Psalms 133 and 1. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. You know what I'm saying? We're to be Christ-like, man. You know what I'm saying? Love each other as Christ has loved you. You know what I'm saying? It's a pleasant thing for brothers and sisters to get together, you know what I'm saying, and being, like how it says, together in unity. You know what I'm saying? That's, you know, we've got to unify as a people. You know what I'm saying? Like we're the salt of the earth, man. Anything we do is just awesome. So it's the same way when we actually get together on the same accord, on, you know what I'm saying, in unifying, you know what I'm saying, building a nation. That's how we, you know what I'm saying, it's pleasant, man. We're gonna do it the best. You know what I'm saying, that nobody has, you know what I'm saying, you're never gonna see anything like it, man, when us as a people get together. You know, because we're a light to this world anyway. We've got to lead this planet. You know what I'm saying? Really, you know what I'm saying, this whole universe, because it's all ours. You know what I'm saying, it's really, you know what I'm saying, the whole universe, everything out there is ours for the taking. You know, the Lord made it for us. You know, so you know it's in our best interest anyway to unify. All right. So with that, you know what I'm saying, we're gonna close the class. I'm saying make sure you check out Just Laundry Products at Etsy.com. You know what I'm saying, pay your camp funds and your tithes. I'm saying, and this is the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, start at 1 West 125th Street under Commanding General YAHANNA, not affiliated with any other Hebrew Israelite group. Shalom.